What's Joe Biden going to do? Is he going to stay in the race? Is he going to drop out? Here's my answer. I am running, and we're going to win. I'm not going to change that.
All right, welcome back to the homestead. Let's do this. This is my Ezra Eagle part 2 video. I actually just about made this video the other day because I had a thought for you to consider with a fulfillment of the prophecy that I haven't really heard anybody talking about. And that happened today. As President Joe Biden has announced, he is stepping down. He will not seek his party's nomination, even though he was just voted in the Democrat primary. So he is the candidate, but now he's stepping down. He just endorsed Kamala Harris. And how does this fit in to a 2,500-year-old prophecy known as Ezra Eagle? So if you haven't seen my first video, it was just a few days ago. It's just called, I think, Ezra Eagle, very original. I kind of lay out the groundwork of what I believe, kind of my feelings. And in that video, I give full credit to a gentleman named Michael Rush, who, in my opinion, is a gentleman that has been very inspired to bring this ancient prophecy forward, because until him, I hadn't really heard of anybody that had any American interpretation of the Ezra Eagle prophecy having an American setting. I just went back and re-listened to his chapter 2 in his book, A Remnant Shall Return. And the groundwork he lays for that prophecy to have an American setting is just, I don't want to say impeccable. For me it is. I'm completely convinced that he's right on the money. So as a rundown to the prophecy, those who have been watching and kind of aware of the prophecy, we have literally been waiting for Joe Biden to be taken out of office. So as the prophecy goes, he would need to be out of office before sooner than Trump. Now, and I'm going to get right to the heart of my message right here. So most people interpret that, and they could be right, but most people interpret that to mean that Joe Biden has got to leave office before January 25th of 2025, because Trump was a short feather. We can talk about that later. He left office before his time. And so if Joe Biden, as a prophecy, says that his feather of leadership will be shorter than the last. So most interpret that saying that he's out by January 25th of 2025. Now, if you will just let me indulge my thinking here. Trump was out under conspiracy, right? It was a great conspiracy theory. So in the prophecy, we know there was a conspiracy theory with a short feather, JFK. There was a conspiracy theory, a conspiracy situation that created the resignation of Nixon. And then with Trump, I mean, the 2020 election is completely riddled with conspiracy, contradiction, irregularities, illegalities. So if you believe that Donald J. Trump was a short feather because of election integrity, fraud, the changing of the legislative process for mail-in voting, judges said you could, but legislature said you couldn't, but legislatures are the ones who's in charge. So they're in charge, not the judges. So if you believe that Donald Trump is a short feather because of some inconsistencies, some conspiracies with the election system, well, that didn't happen in January. That happened in November. So, you know how we all went to bed and Donald Trump was ahead of the election, and all of a sudden Joe Biden just did this boop, you know, this algorithmic anomaly. To me, that right there could potentially be the Ezra Eagle moment. Because sometimes what we do is we say, oh, well, short feather means their presidency. Well, maybe it is, but are we talking about the presidency in the actual terms? Are we talking about the short feather is an event that changes the trajectory of their presidency? because it was in November, really on election night, while we were all sleeping, that some sort of conspiratorial something happened and the algorithm broke. And we woke up the next morning and it wasn't Donald J. Trump. It was Joseph Biden who was going to be our next president. Okay? So what I have been waiting for and wondering the last few days, well, if that's true, again, this is kind of Nate's theory inside of the Ezra Eagle prophecy. If that's true, then something's got to happen to Joe Biden, not before January, but before November. And here we are. So just a thought. And again, I am definitely no authority on this topic. I'm just a dude with a homestead. I've got a really large greenhouse. I got a bunch of rabbits. I got a bunch of really cool preps that the Lord has been blessing me with to do for the last 20 years. And I've been deciding to share them on YouTube because I think that the time is now to be prepared. That's not conspiracy. Look at the world. If you don't think it's time to maybe put some of these things back into your own wheelhouse, you are the conspiracy theorist, because you are in a false security, baby. Nobody can walk around in 2024 and think all is well unless your head is fully in the sand. Prove me wrong. Let's have a debate. If you think I'm wrong and all is well, as friends, let's get together on the channel and let's have a debate, because the world's on fire. Okay, so going back to this. So all of a sudden you have Joe Biden resigning. At the very first, I put a clip of him just like 8 days ago. Because 8 days ago, everyone's like, Joe Biden's going to get out. And there's all of this stuff happening. And even since then, there's been all these rumors and rumbles that Joe Biden's getting out. And guess what? Joe Biden and the other people in his circle says that's not true. That is not happening. We are not getting out. And they're pretty adamant about it. Well, as they said that they're not getting out, and I would say again, they who have the delegates, they who were put in the primary and voted upon by the Democrats. So it's his race. Like, it's so crazy to me when that was all happening. I'm like, how can you just tell Joe Biden to get out of his party? He is the leader of the party. He is the elected nominee for the Democrats. But you know what happened? Just like clockwork, you started to have all these elites turn on him. Mainly, it was the very first thing I noticed was the media. It was as if somebody flipped a switch and says, we are going after this guy. And so after the media, next, and just like clockwork, was Hollywood. Started with George Clooney. You know, they don't get higher up in the upper echelons of Hollywood elitism than Clooney and people, you know, and it was just absolutely crazy because Clooney just barely had raised like some $20 million in a fundraiser for Biden. And he was around Joe Biden. And again, Joe Biden has been Joe Biden for 4 years. Nothing's changed. I mean, there's been a slow entropy as far as things with him, but this is no surprise if you guys are just watching. And so for him to turn, hey guys, give me all this money for Joe Biden. Oh, thanks for that. Oh, by the way, dude, this is not the same guy. I'm going to turn on him, and I'm George Clooney, so you have to turn on him. So that happened with first the media and then Hollywood. And then right after that, there was the headline that came through like a few days after that, where the Democratic super PACs that are holding like millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars for not just the presidential Democratic nominee, but all of those running down ballot in the Democrats and saying, we will not give one more dollar of money until Joe Biden steps aside. So then all of a sudden the elites turn and the money starts drying up. All of that conglomerated together is what I'm saying could potentially be the Biden short feather. He did not want to get out. It was his to run, and they have stripped it from him. Who? I don't know. Someone higher than him. Well, how can you get higher than the leader of the Democratic Party? Well, I don't know. So if you subscribe at all to this 2,500-year-old prophecy, you know, then the prophecy is represented by an eagle, and it was always strange to me that it wasn't the eagle heads that was running the country. It was these feathers. And I'm like, well, what the heck? Shouldn't the presidents of the United States not be representative of feathers? They should be represented as the eagle head. But that's not the way it is in the prophecy. And I think Ezra nailed it 2,500 years ago when he said all of a sudden, starting right before, right during Hoover, where you have all of this American filth, all these secret combinations starting to be set up, these 3-letter agencies starting to be set up, America became a different nation right at that time. And he represents that by these eagle heads. There's 3 of them that represent this kingdom, but they're asleep. It's like they preside because they're the head, but they're asleep. And then you have these feathers, which are the rulers, who before that used to be the constitutionally elected rulers who were really in charge of things. You're like, well, now, Nate, what does that mean? The presidents were in charge of things. Okay, let me thread the needle here just a little bit, okay? Because John F. Kennedy, who was a short feather in this prophecy, was the president of the United States of America. Now, most of you, in surveys that are polled, most Americans are now believing that the assassination of John F. Kennedy was an inside job, that perhaps factions within took him out. So suddenly that conspiracy theory is becoming more and more mainstream. Well, if you don't subscribe to some of the stuff I'm talking about, then why would John F. Kennedy order his own assassination? Well, he didn't. Well, someone did, and that's the point. Is it wasn't him. With something outside of him, other forces come in, some other forces higher up and coming down, and had opportunity to tell Secret Service agents, the second car behind JFK, hey, stand down. And suddenly John F. Kennedy's car was left alone with, a convertible, smart, in the open air with the Secret Service back further behind. There was a stand down order. Well, who does that?
Watch the left side of your screen. The arrow points to Agent in Charge, Emory Roberts, as he stands in the Secret Service follow-up car and motions with his hand. What he is doing is calling away the president's 2 most important bodyguards, the bodyguards whose job was to protect the president's back by riding on the bumper of the limousine throughout the motorcade.
How can the president not be in charge of everything? But it seems in that moment that they weren't. Same thing with Nixon. All of a sudden you have literally one of the most popular presidential nominees in history, over a scandal, being replaced by literally one of the least popular presidential figures, political candidates in history. Sound familiar? Does that sound familiar? So here we are. I believe that Joe Biden, from some higher issue, some higher gross dark faction, has been forced out of his presidential candidacy within the Democratic Party. I feel like he came to a point to where him and that small inner circle had no other point. Hollywood had turned, the media had turned, the money had turned. Who turned them? Who turned them? Now, you think that Kamala Harris is going to have any better chance winning Trump than Biden? Come on. If you believe that, then you really do have your head, not in the sand, but you have your head in the soil underneath these banana trees here at the Manti Homestead. Come on. So we have got a negative and a very precarious situation here in America, and I don't like it. I obviously have issues with President Biden and his policies, and I'm not voting for him. But I've said this repeatedly, that America is in danger. We have some issues that are usurping the democratic process, literally usurping the Democrat platform and coming in and forcing the person who was voted on by the Democrats to be the nominee. And now suddenly you are going to have somebody that you did not vote for if you're on the left. I stand with you on your rights. This is not good. I would suggest to you that this is evil. Okay, I just want to do a concluding thought here, because in a couple of my videos ago about America in danger, you know, my whole point of that thing was that America was set up to be a land of freedom by the God of heaven. That is not a conspiracy. That is a fact. The miracles that led up to the founding, the fact that we were able to pull it off, those early leaders, they all knew it. And this nation thrived under In God We Trust, one nation under God. And so as we have turned from that, and as we have very slowly and now suddenly went away from constitutional protection, we have not been the stewards who have been protecting the freedom that we have been given. And I also believe that this land, when it serves God, will be blessed. And this land, when it does not serve God, when it does not uphold liberty, that's meaning us, when we don't do our part to serve God, when we do not do our part to uphold liberty, that we are susceptible to bondage and corruption and chaos and even judgment. And I think that that is now the situation that we're in. So my next video, I want to discuss more of what I think is coming, and it's not good. It's taken from the book of Revelation, and it's a very heavy topic. And I don't plan on endlessly having all of these scriptural ones, because I am not a scriptorian. But as I'm reading things, I'm thinking, you guys, we have got to get ready. So, ending quote from Ezra Taft Benson. I've mentioned this before. It's about preparation. If we are not about preparing homesteads and food storage and whatever else, and we're Christian, it must be because we don't believe the revelations in the Bible, or we're not acquainted with them. So if you do know, and you do read, and you do realize that this country has become corrupt, and that there's a lot of tribulations prophesied, then you better get at it. So this channel is about that. There's much we can do to insulate ourselves and our families and our communities against the chaos and the fire that's all around us. And that's what we should be doing. And today, with this next secret combination, this next deep state move, forcing Biden out of the presidential race, which was already his, that is further evidence that you better buckle up. All right, see you next video.
By what has been, you know? What can be unburdened by what has been.
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 What we can see, what we believe can be unburdened by what has been.
What 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 can be unburdened by what has been.
Who we can be unburdened by who we have been. What can be unburdened by what has been.
Where we can be unburdened by where we have been, and unburdened by where we are right now.
What can be unburdened by what has been.
What can be unburdened by what has been.
What can be unburdened by what has been.
What could be unburdened by what had been.
What can be unburdened by what has been.